Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 4th meeting of the Temple Terrace City Council. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence your electronic devices, and if you would, please stand and join me in invocation and the pledge. Lord, we ask your blessings on our meeting tonight. Grant us wisdom and compassion as we work to advance the common good of our amazing city. We pray especially for Ralph Lupton and his family tonight as they grieve his recent passing. Grant them comfort and peace in this difficult time, and may they feel the love and support of our community. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who don't frequently visit our council meetings, we have a fairly new tradition whereby we begin each of our council meetings with an interesting or fun fact about our city or its history or the area, and we rotate that duty. And tonight it is Council Member Kravitz's turn. I believe it's your first turn, so welcome, and all yours.
Just before I start, you're sure no one else wants to do this today? Okay. Thank you, Andy, for the introduction. It's going to be short, but it's going to be dense, so a little bit like fruitcake, so buckle up. All right, so as we hit our 100th anniversary, the centennial, it's worth remembering that many principles underlying our day-to-day work in City Council are thousands of years old. But the first ordinance passed in Temple Terrace was passed in 1925, and that was 100 years ago. It had to do with money. In fact, it was to secure funding for a water plant and a power plant. Those are two basic needs: clean, safe water and reliable power, still top of mind for everyone. But what is an ordinance? Everyone who knows me knows that I'm fascinated by legal theory, so this is where the dense fruitcake part starts. At the most granular, lowest level, it's the exercise of the state's power. It's the level that's closest to the citizens. It's delegated to the city and exercised within certain constitutional and statutory constraints. So cities are navigating between the limitations of federal and state law and the practical needs on site. There's also questions of due process, equal protection, and other important principles. So that is the minimum that goes into a good ordinance. And anyone who's been watching the last few city council meetings has seen a spirited debate about fences and hedges. So what you're seeing is the hard work that goes into making sure that an ordinance really fits the needs of the citizens. So what kind of principles go into that? Part goes back to England, part goes back to the Romans. When Thomas Jefferson founded the University of Virginia, he contributed his personal copy of Emperor Justinian's Institutes of Law. That was one of the United States of America's first law schools. Roman jurists had a couple of principles that are still really relevant to us today. One of them was that legal terms have to be precisely defined so that they can be properly applied. They developed the principle that ambiguous terms render a law void. If you don't know what it says, how can you follow it? This extended to jurisdiction and also scope of authority. The next principle that was very relevant is legal reason. So they have to state in a law what is required and what is the purpose. The reasoning has to be logically sound, and you have to demonstrate necessity. Ignorance of the law isn't an excuse. That's a principle that we still uphold. That's why laws have to be understandable. Otherwise, you're setting people up to stumble over a block. And the next principle is proper authority. You got checks and balances. The Romans had 2 elected officials at most of the positions in their republic, 2 consuls splitting power. That's what inspired the Federalist Papers to develop checks and balances. Everyone's heard that term, and it found its way into our mixed constitution. We're almost at the end, folks, don't worry. Building on the Roman principle of legal reason, Blackstone, one of the most famous English legal commentators, argued that laws have to be sufficiently published and explained, which is why I'm always getting in trouble with Pam because of notice requirements.
You mean city attorney Shoshone?
That's right, Andy, thank you. Foundation is public notice, something we're all constantly fixated on. Any ordinance prepared in Temple Terrace must go through proper noticing to give citizens an ample opportunity to say their piece about it. Passing it in secret is prohibited. And who could forget the Magna Carta? That's about 850 years old. You find basic ideas in there that a law should be written down in a common language so people can read it, find it, and understand it. Now, we do write our ordinances in English, but of course they could still be easier to understand even today. Magna Carta also gave us due process, the idea that we have to hear people's grievances and make it possible for them to redress these under the law instead of frustrating them. And then there's also the idea of proportionality, which is that a penalty has to fit the offense. So next time you turn on your light in your house or open the tap, remember all that goes into that. Thousands of years of history into every ordinance governing every little bit of behavior in this city. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kravitz. Our first order of business is a board appointment. There is one regular vacancy on the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission, one regular member vacancy, and we received one application from Dr. Van Linkus from USF. She is here. Would you like to say a few words, Dr. Linkus, please?
Thank you, Mayor Ross, members of council. It's my pleasure to be considered for this position. I served on it briefly previously, 2021, I believe, and unfortunately that was interrupted due to an employment commitment, but I'd be very excited to serve again. I've lived in Temple Terrace for 11 years. I'm very involved with the Planning Commission on a number of levels in my role as the USF head of the Urban Planning Department, and I'd love to kind of continue to bridge that gap between USF, Temple Terrace, and the work that I do. I have 25 years in the planning profession. I've got a master's and PhD in urban planning, and I've been committed to doing what I can in the community. I've served in quite a lot of board roles and community roles, and this is the one that I actually enjoyed the most, so it'd be my honor to be considered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor. Council, is there a motion?
Yes, move to approve Evangeline Linkus to the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission to fill a vacancy for a term extending from February 4th, 2025 to February 4th, 2029.
Second.
Motion and second. Thank you. Is there a discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you, Dr. Linkus, for your service. Next order is a alternate member appointment to the Temple Terrace Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We received one application from Eric Sievers, who was here last meeting. Or Mr. Sievers, are you here tonight? I don't recognize him. Okay, I don't think he's here, but he's the gentleman you'll recall that was here last time, applied for the regular position, and I'm glad that he decided to apply for the alternate position. Is there a motion?
Move to approve Eric Severs to fill the void for the Temple Terrace Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for the alternate member vacancy for the term extending from February 4, 2025 to June 4, 2027.
Second.
Motion second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Mr. Sievers, if you're watching, thank you for your service. Has everybody had an opportunity to review the minutes of our January 21st meeting? And if so, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. The minutes are adopted. Next are persons wishing to be heard on items not listed on the agenda or items on the consent agenda. There are forms in the back of the room. If you would like to address the council at this time. We do have a 30-minute time limit for this section of our meeting. If it becomes necessary to extend that to accommodate all people who wish to speak, we do that then at the conclusion of the meeting that we can get through our agenda. I don't think we're going to approach the 30 minutes, but I like to read that once in a while to let people know that we do have that. We have a 3-minute time limit imposed on all speakers, and we ask that you please approach the podium and begin with your name and city of residence. So our first request to speak is from Miss Annette Rennie. Miss Rennie, welcome.
Thank you. Annette Rennie, 9512 Woodland Ridge, Temple Terrace. I've been here before. I'm asking you again. We need an ordinance sign about dumping animals in front of the preserve. I know you were good enough to send me a picture, Carlos, of the one that's on the road. But what's happening is we've had 5 dogs dumped in the last 6 weeks. One which I was walking and the woman threw out and the dog actually chased her car. We need that ordinance. It might not stop everybody, but if it's there, they might think that there's cameras. They might think that people are watching. Thank God I work with a rescue that was able to help these dogs. 2 were puppies. 3 were adult dogs. Please, the post is already there that states no motorized vehicles. We could put the ordinance sign that we put at the parks right there. So I'm asking council to please go forth and put a sign at the beginning. We never had this years ago. Now we do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rennie. Mr. Loeb. Good evening, sir.
My name is Charles Loeb, Terrace Park. Several topics of conversation tonight. Number one, I want to talk about how much I enjoyed the library birthday party. I do have one comment about it, though, in dealing with the young people, and that is they need to be able, I'll get to the bottom line on it so we can go and have other topics, and that is that young people need to learn to be able to function without power as well as with it, as well as with the latest technology. I'll put it to you this way. I saw one young person over the library who wanted to know what presidents were assassinated. I was able to tell him that before he could get it on his cell phone. The next topic I have, a conversation I have, is I want to bring up about the idea of entertainment, playbill entertainment. And that is, one of the persons over at Writers Club asked me to ask you all about that. About maybe, I came up with the idea of bringing it up before the Youngling Center, that it might be possible to make a deal with them while it is, while they're not using it over the summer, to maybe get playbill type entertainment over at the Youngling Center. And it's something that you all might want to negotiate with USF. I also wanted to bring up about Bus One. I do want to give kudos to the city of Tampa for allowing people to ride Bus One for the year for free. But I do think instead of getting up, and I was telling the vice mayor this, that instead of getting people focused on one route, they should get people focused on the whole system, especially with the Flamingo passes, and that they should be focusing on buses that have to be run to service people, even though there are, that are pretty empty, because they have to be run anyway, and it's better to have more people on those buses. And I also mentioned about the idea of cardboard advertising on the buses and special discounts for people that show Flamingo passes when they go to sponsoring stores. Finally, I did want to bring up something in case anybody knows about this. About a while back, I donated a golf program to the city of Temple Terrace. It had autographs of Johnny Bench, and the event was in 1972. But I donated it very recently. I don't have the time to tell you the whole story, but the bottom line is, the reason I'm bringing it up for several reasons. First of all, I want to know if anybody knows about the Johnny Bench Invitational from 1972, an old-time resident. Secondly, that if anybody has a copy of the program, even an unautographed copy of the program. And finally, I donated a program that had an autograph on it with Johnny Bench, the Hall of Fame baseball player, and its value, so I think it would be important for the city to know it. But I do want this to be aware of the city's history, and I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Loeb. Mr. Sumner? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Fred Sumner, SUN-NER, 502 Roxburn Avenue. Longtime resident of Temple Terrace, 40-plus years. Have volunteered for Temple Terrace Boy Scout Troop and served a couple of terms on the Municipal Code Enforcement Board. The reason I'm here has to do with a flag controversy. I work in Tampa, and my colleagues have had a lot of fun, poking fun at this selection process. I happen to think the process is rotten and is condescending. Rotten because it's done in the dark, self-serving, done in the dark, and condescending because somebody, a group, I don't know, seems to think that their judgment is superior to everyone else in this matter. Now, the flag is not a high-dollar issue. I mean, not compared to $25 million mow strip we have in the center of town. And it's not even a matter of aesthetics. You could hardly find a worse looking flag than what the city of Tampa has. But I'm here because I would like something done, hopefully in the matter of negative disciplinary consequences for this kind of rotten and condescending decision-making. And I still love Temple Terrace. Thank you for your attention.
Audrey Kravitz.
Good evening, city staff and elected officials. My name is Audrey Kravitz. I'm a resident of Temple Terrace. I'm here tonight to share my own personal thoughts on the Riverside Park project. I attended the January 23rd meeting held regarding Riverside Park, and I'm speaking tonight because this project, as it stands, is not on the right track. This is supposed to be a park for us and by us, yet the process so far has been deeply flawed. This is a multi-million-dollar investment, and it deserves far greater oversight, transparency, and community input. At the January 23rd meeting, many residents, including myself, walked away with concerns about the project so far. The materials presented contained typos, provided no new substantive information beyond what's already on the city's website, and showed a lack of serious preparation. Worse, the consultants from Half Associates, a large firm with over 1,500 employees across the eastern United States, appeared unprepared, defensive, and resistant to public feedback. They can and they should do better. The consultants insist that this park is for Temple Terrace residents, but unfortunately the design seems to tell a different story. A large pavilion and an event space directly behind homes suggests a venue for large gatherings and not a neighborhood park. If the city wants an event space, why not place it in a commercial area instead of disrupting a quiet neighborhood? Consider the lot that the city already owns in the middle of the downtown development. At the meeting, both the consultants and city staff maintained that the tree canopy was a priority and that the project would not materially change the tree canopy. However, nearly every tree on that lot has been marked with either a red or an orange flag, which we learned at the meeting means that it is at risk of being cut down. Residents have not been given clear information about which trees will be removed, what the plan is to replace them. A park should enhance our green spaces, not eliminate them. This project has been presented as a local park designed to connect River Hills Park with downtown development. However, if the city government and consultants feel compelled to turn it into a prestige project, then those goals should be clearly defined, made public, and members of the community should receive more opportunity to gauge in the process. The park must reflect the needs and concerns of the Temple Terrace residents. There's also a security issue. This park already has safety concerns that were raised at the meeting, and the consultants had not even talked with the Temple Terrace Police Department before they held the meeting. There's also the issue of the budget. The project is already over 30% planned. We still don't know how it will be funded, how it will be maintained. The city's website vaguely mentions potential state or federal funds, but if those don't come through, it's unclear where the money will come from. I'm here tonight to ask residents to get involved. I urge everyone to go on the city's website and submit the survey that the city has put forward for this. Thank you for your time.
Mark Fetterman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Mark Fetterman, Temple Terrace. I'm here just to double down on my offer to volunteer to help with the flag process. Not coming to you with just a grievance, but actually offering to volunteer to help possibly lead what I'm seeing as a community-led effort. You know, we could see it within the Instagram pages and Facebook pages as well. So thank you for your effort here and hearing me out. Have a good night.
Matthew Palm. Good evening.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Today I want to address two issues. The park proposal. Sorry? Matthew Palm, Temple Terrace. I am wanting to propose an amendment to a current ordinance that exists. Addition, want to add sentiments for the park proposal that's been outlined in various ways. So starting out with a amendment for a current ordinance in drone usage in our community. Recent events, there was somebody that was using unauthorized drone at a city park, River Hills Park, which is next to the school. This brings up safety concerns for our children at the school. The current ordinance does not have the right language, I believe, and based off of some legal counsel and additional research. The city of Orlando has put forward an ordinance at a city level, which supersedes a federal amendment that exists to allow for 500 feet from any school. And so I believe that that's an amendment that could upend the current proposed ordinance, but then add the safety for the schools that are in our community. Right now it says that you can't fly it off of a city-owned property. And so somebody could just easily go across the street and fly it from across the street and still be in a school property. So by adding the verbiage of 500 feet from any school would be a really easy change for the city to add safety for our children. So the other part is the park proposal. As Ms. Kravitz said, I believe that this is something that needs more community input. I have gone to the survey that was given out by the city, so thank you for putting that out. I believe that it doesn't have the right language in there for us as citizens to really put our input. It's really geared towards the usage of the survey to really weaponize it. So I think a reassessment of the survey would be really great for the citizens. But more so, I would focus the attention on the River Hills Park. We have a duplication in the proposal that was presented. We have kayak launches already at the River Hills Park. We have a boardwalk already at the River Hills Park. We have all of the gazebo, the event space, all these things already exist. And what we're seeing is that there's a lack of maintenance and ability for the city to really even uphold what we already have. So now we're going to go build another one for $5 million and neglect one that's already there with all the same amenities. I believe that there's a way that you could balance that with taking some of the funding from one and injecting it into the other one. The contractor gets to use the same amount of money, and it just de-scopes one project to bring the community in the other. Thank you.
Okay, it's all the requests I have. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Next is a resolution awarding the Ferncliff Avenue and Bellevue Avenue resurfacing project at, excuse me, asphalt paving systems. And our city engineer, Brian McCarthy, is here to explain. Good evening.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council. Brian McCarthy, City Engineer, and today I'm here seeking approval to award a contract to Asphalt Paving Systems for the Ferncliff Avenue and Bellevue Avenue roadway resurfacing work. The city received 4 bids, ranging from the low end at $715,000 to the upper end of $950,000. This work includes full depth reclamation, resurfacing, replacing pavement markings, speed humps, and other miscellaneous work. The figure on the screen shows the limits of the project. This is just south of our recently St. Augustine Avenue resurfacing project. In red is the 2 roads that we're looking at resurfacing. At 2:30 p.m. today, we met with FDOT representatives to discuss the surtax dollars. Ferncliff Avenue and Bellevue Avenue roadway projects are both on the surtax project list that was passed by the state government. We would be eligible to get reimbursed for the roadway work, saving the city roughly $715,000 worth of our street funds to be used on other projects. To get reimbursed, we learned that a joint agreement between FDOT, Hillsborough County, and City of Temple Terrace needs to be in place before we provide a financial guarantee to the contractor, like a purchase order or a PO. So City Council can approve the project tonight, and staff would look at issuing the PO once the joint agreement was implemented. The surtax joint agreement is tentatively scheduled for county and city approvals in the March meetings. Public Works has been in contact with our contractor since December regarding our St. Augustine Avenue resurfacing work. We have another meeting with them tomorrow to discuss this new information as well as the possible changes to the schedule. During our meeting tomorrow, staff us will continue to discuss completing the St. Augustine Avenue work sooner rather than later, but having the Ferncliff and Bellevue Avenue projects implemented after the joint agreement has been signed. This project delay for Ferncliff and Bellevue Avenue would save the city roughly $715,000. So with that, staff recommends City Council approve a resolution awarding the Ferncliff Avenue and Bellevue Avenue roadway resurfacing work to Asphalt Paving Systems for $714,875.70. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none. Council member questions. I'm going to anticipate one. So during this meeting with DOT today, we asked if we could replace these projects with equivalent projects on another road for the same amount of money because we were about to pull the trigger on this. And they said, no, you can't because these projects are identified in the state law that was signed. Mm-hmm. So if we don't use that money, that refund money, we just lose it. So anyway, questions?
Yes.
Yes, Councilmember Fernandez.
So, first, just to walk through the process, in order to receive these funds, the county commissioners need to create an agreement with FDOT first. Yeah, just walk me through the process.
Sure. So we anticipate, so FDOT actually has the agreement. There's a draft that we have not yet received, but we were told we should be receiving it shortly. I believe it's going to be the same agreement that the county is going to receive. The county staff has given FDOT the note saying that the county commission plans to review this in March. They've asked us if we would bring it to our city council also in March. So basically both parties would be, assuming the council approves it and assuming the commission approves it, I wouldn't see why they wouldn't look at it positively. We'd basically be agreeing to the same thing. We don't have the details of what's in that agreement, but I would imagine it's the way FDOT explained it to us this afternoon is there's $8.8 million allocated to the city of Temple Terrace. And once the agreement is in place, it would be the umbrella agreement governing that in perpetuity for the use of those dollars. There's no sunset provision to those dollars. So if it takes us 3, 4, 5, 10 years to get through those projects, this is a pretty long list, we'd have that ability to do that. But we could not commit, if we commit any dollars, like we actually give the contract a notice to proceed before that three-party agreement is signed, then those dollars would be lost. We couldn't use the surtax funding to offset those dollars.
Okay, so another question then is, since there must be other jurisdictions or other projects within the county and city of Tampa as well, are we going to have an issue with scheduling with this particular contractor or any contractor? Because if all of these, every jurisdiction is going to be needing to agree at the same time, and if they've got projects in process or soon, we're all going to be trying to get them done at the same time.
So I think there could be a chance of that, but I guess I want to reiterate the list that we have. For example, I can only speak to Temple Terrace. I didn't look in much detail with the county's list or Plant City, for example, or Tampa. But these are long lists. There's no way that the municipalities or the county has the capacity, I think, to hammer all of these things out in the next 6 months. These are going to be years in the making, probably, for a lot of these entities. So could there be a little bit more movement in the contractor market? For sure. I don't know that would necessarily mean that we're all going at the same time in the next 30 days, potentially, to get a contract lined up. In our case, we have the advantage. We have the contractor lined up and ready to go. What we're going to have to do if council wishes us to go in this direction would be tomorrow when they meet, they're going to have to work out just a different schedule, what that might mean. Okay. Push us back, hopefully no more than 30 days or so.
Okay.
Council Vice Mayor Schisler.
Yes, you almost answered, I think you almost answered my question, but, okay, this is the same vendor that did St. Augustine, correct? Or is working in St. Augustine?
That's correct.
And they still have not completed St. Augustine to our specs, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and they're going to have, you're going to try and flip-flop it so that they finish St. Augustine first, the proper way, and then hopefully the timing will work out for Ferncliff at that point, correct?
Yes, so
Okay.
St. Augustine will be our first.
Okay, this is a question maybe then for Mr. Baea. What's the risk of BOCC rejecting the agreement? Do you think there's much?
Well, I don't ever want to be the person to kind of gauge what an elected body is going to do, but if we have 8.8 million, the county has to have tens of millions of dollars, I imagine, on the line here. So I wouldn't understand why the county would say, no, we're going to forsake that much revenue, because those dollars are there. The state law's already been passed, so I wouldn't even know what happens with those dollars if they don't use them.
I guess the better question is, can they modify that mix?
No,
Okay.
no, so they can't. They were actually, FDOT was emphatic this afternoon. This is not an administrative process. This is in law. So the law dictates exactly how this goes. So there is no flexibility from what FDOT told us today.
If you remember, the original allocation was a lot of money going to Hart, and the county took most of it away to get for there. So no, they can't touch our pot to go towards county projects. Which I think is important. And to Councilmember Fernandez's point, I wouldn't worry so much about the timing, but the glut of business is going to could cause prices to go up. But we have supply and demand. So the fact that we can drag it out if we have to, if we try to scrunch it all together real fast, a lot like we did with ARPA, pricing could go up with charging premiums and so forth. So it's probably would work to our advantage if we did take our time and you know, within reason to getting it done. So I think this is a good step.
Just a note on that, if I might. I don't think that's going to be the big problem like we had with ARPA when everybody is trying to use the same pipe vendors. I mean, you can't get pipe, you can't get culverts.
Well, I agree.
I don't think this, and I'll tell you why, because every jurisdiction did exactly what we did. They went through their capital improvement plan, and they picked out projects from the CIP, their 5-year plan, and submitted them to the state for consideration on this list. Not all of these projects are shovel-ready. So there's a lot of lead-in time for some of these projects, which is going to take years. They're not even been let out for design or PD&E. So some of these projects will be 5 years before they're ready for construction. So I think just the lengthy process that it takes to get I think the lengthy process, it takes forever to build anything transportation related. It just is the most bureaucratic thing I've ever seen in my life. So that process itself, I think, is going to meter some of this out.
Well, a follow-up question is, how much should we have in the original list for this project? Do we know? Did we have a chance to look that up?
I think our prices are under budget on all of them, I think.
So in the list provided by the state, so what I'm not sure about if the state had, I wasn't here when these numbers were originally submitted, so I'm not sure if they've adjusted from the original, but what the state gave us right now is for Bellevue Avenue from South River Hills to Pinehurst Avenue, they have allocated $414,000. And then from Ferncliff Avenue from South River Hills to South River Hills, $603,750. So that amount is actually larger, more money than the amount we're asking for tonight. So our pricing came out better than that amount. So that's a good thing for us.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions? Councilmember Kravitz? Okay. If there are no more questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve resolution awarding the Ferncliff and Bellevue Avenue resurfacing project to Asphalt Paving Systems with the award postponed until we settle with until we sign the agreement with the county regarding the disposition of the funding. Does that work? Mr. Schoen?
Probably unnecessary we don't need all that.
Yeah,
We just need an
I
approval
think
of
we
the,
just, correct, if we just need an
Okay.
approval, because the other issue is just the PO, and that's administrative action, so
Okay.
we just want to make sure the council understands, we're going to delay that PO until after you look at the three-party
I
agreement.
didn't know if we needed to put that in there. Okay, so I move to approve the resolution awarding the Ferncliff and Bellevue Avenue resurfacing project to Asphalt Paving Systems.
Second.
motion and second discussion of the motion. I just have one comment. We did talk about this today, but I want to assure the public and everybody, we need to make sure that we notify the people out there because we've already told them that the contractor was going to start on the 10th or whenever. And I think in light of this, we have good reason for the delay, but I don't want to I've personally told some of these people they were going to start on the 10th and now we're not.
So we'll do that, we'll put it out not only electronically, but we'll do door hangers to let everybody know kind of what's happening. We'll a letter together and put it on everybody's door in these two corridors.
Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Resolution is adopted. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Next is a resolution authorizing payment to Tampa Crane and Body for the emergency purchase of a commercial sanitation truck. Our Public Works Director, Jason Warren Felts, is here to explain.
Good evening, City Council. Jason Warrenfeldt, your Public Works Director. Seeking approval for a resolution to purchase a roll-off truck for the Commercial Sanitation Division. This is falling under an emergency purchase due to the aging fleet and as you know, we've added over 40 commercial accounts to the list of what we service. The aging fleet is defeating us a little bit by significant downtime. So this emergency purchase would allow us a quick acquisition of a truck in 60 days to keep our fleet running and keep the customers provided with their service.
Thank you, Mr. Warren Felts. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council member questions. Vice Mayor?
Just what does the term emergency allow us to do? Bypassing what?
I can take us out of that, unless you want to do it.
According to the statute, an emergency purchase can be made when there is an immediate danger to public
Microphone.
When there's an immediate danger to public health, safety, or welfare, when there is a substantial loss to the agency, when delay would be detrimental to the agency's interests, and when there is an unexpected turn of events such as a flood, fire, or accident.
Well, that denotes the emergency status, but what are we bypassing by doing that, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So typically this purchase price of this magnitude we'd have to go out for a bid process or a proposal RFP process. That process itself would take probably a couple of weeks to put all the specs together and then a month on the street and then review. And at that point, then an order would be placed, assuming council approved that at the end, an order would be placed, and then we'd wait several months for this vehicle to show up. So what Director Warrenfeldt is trying to articulate here this evening is our sanitation division operates like a business, and largely what's driving the revenue in that business is the commercial side of the house. So they have worked really hard successfully to acquire over 40 accounts, including the Amazon account, which we mentioned here. It's a monumental account. And we have vehicles where, for example, we have a 22-year-old truck on the commercial side that is not super reliable. We're having issues. We're having downtime, so we're not being able to service our customers effectively. And this is a business. It operates like a business, so if we can't service them effectively, it leads to complaints and other issues. So because of that, the emergency provision is detrimental to the agency, in a sense, detrimental to their sanitation fund, if we have to wait and go through the process, which could take a year, because we've identified a vehicle that meets our specs, that's available, and that we could acquire, again, within and have on the street probably within 60 days of your approval this evening.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Councilmember Fernandez.
A couple. So one would be the pricing that we are looking at for this purchase. Is it consistent with the kind of pricing we would anticipate if we had put it out for a bid? Or piggybacking off of another entity or jurisdiction's maybe agreement somewhere?
Yes, so obviously if we were to piggyback or use a government agreement, There could be a slight savings, but there's also the delay that could risk revenue. Those dollars are minimal. So yeah, the pricing was compared to other vendors if they could get this on a contract on an extended period, and it was very similar.
Okay, so then my other question really has more to do with longer-term planning. And I know that we've acquired the 40-plus commercial accounts that we didn't previously have, but the aging fleet we do know about and we have known about. So when we were looking at our budget and anticipating the needs of this enterprise fund, how did we think through this process?
Sure, if I may. So when we were going through the budget, we actually hadn't secured the Amazon account. If council will recall, we were in negotiations, largely again thanks to Mr. Warrenfeldt, but it wasn't firmed up yet. So by the time we got through the budget was adopted without any reference to the Amazon account, the revenue coming in from that. So, and on top of that, concurrently, Mr. Warrenfeldt was still acquiring new accounts. Both him and Mr. Munoz were going out, shaking the bushes in the industrial area, which used to be the county, and adding accounts as the budget was progressing. So that new revenue was not reflected in the budget. And also that means that we weren't acquiring equipment and building and capital because we were basically staying within our means. Now we have a situation where we've got a lot of accounts, we've grown substantially, we've got a lot of new projected revenue. Now we're sort of catching up a little bit here because that happened post-budget adoption. A lot of this, it's all good, it's all positive, but it's like any company, again, growing pains. You're in that cycle now of significant fast growth.
Okay, so my last question has to do with our fund balance. And for those in the audience who don't realize, governmental enterprise fund, which this is, has to operate as a business. So the revenues have to come in and cover the cost to operate. And part of that cost to operate is not just your ordinary day-to-day expenses, but it's also replacement vehicles. So I just want to make sure that, because we have had some issues in the past with our enterprise funds, that we had not set fees appropriate or commensurate with the expense in order to have healthy fund balances, and then we've had to increase our fees in large quantities instead of having done it gradually over time. So I just want to make sure that we are, even though these accounts didn't exist when we were budgeting, et cetera, and we've got this expenditure, that we are, our fees do provide, and this expenditure will not impair the fund balance that we're working towards.
Questions?
Sorry.
If that's
Councilman, City Manager.
If that's I can frame that, I think, as a question.
Okay.
I think that's what you're asking. So the anticipated revenue from the new accounts and the Amazon account, for example, we looked at that. So if the council approves the expense this evening to acquire this vehicle, it'll be pulled from the reserves. But we've looked at it, Finance Director Ingram has looked at it, and we anticipate year end that we'll have more than adequate revenue, new revenue coming in during this current fiscal year to offset the amount we're pulling from the reserve. So there should be no negative impact financially on the fund at all from this acquisition. Is that correct, Mr. Ingram? Can you nod yes if that's correct? All right, for the
Okay.
record, he's nodding yes. So.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Other questions, council members? To refresh my memory, it was in the backup material, and you told me also this week. How long would it take to pay for this truck? Didn't you say like 3 months of revenue will pay for this truck?
No, that was the containers.
Oh.
Containers for the truck. So revenue, the revenue projections are up. To actually pay, if we used revenues to specifically pay for this truck, I would anticipate 8 to 9 months if we only used the revenue to pay for that truck. But we still have other bills to pay.
We still have, yeah. Okay. Good. Other questions? If there are no other questions, is there a motion?
Move to approve authorizing payment to Tampa Crane and Body for the emergency purchase of a commercial sanitation truck.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion?
I'd like to say one thing.
Sure. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Is you were able to respond quickly to a situation, and that's admirable, and I think you've done your homework and did a good job. Thank you very much, all your staff.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. Thank you very much, Mr. Warrenfeld. Next is a second public hearing and second reading of Ordinance 1579, creating Article 5 trespassing under Chapter 16 of the Code of Ordinances. I will open the public hearing and ask our Deputy City Attorney, Ernie Mueller, to explain.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Council. Ernie Mueller with the Legal Department. And as the Mayor stated, I'm here to present an ordinance for second reading on trespass on public property. We have the, okay, thank you. Now, as a reminder, let's see if I do this right. Is it on?
Is it on?
We're good. All right, sorry, Council. As a reminder, this ordinance will create an Article 5 under Chapter 16 of the City Code, and then creates Section 16101, which will address instances when someone on city or public property may be issued a trespass warning because they've either violated state law, a city ordinance, or city rules or regs, or the person or persons may have been asked to leave by city staff because they've engaged in some sort of conduct or behavior that's disruptive or is posing a threat to the safety of other people, to city staff, or to city property. So the ordinance does two things. First, it affirms the city's right to issue a trespass warning to someone from the city or public property for a period of 1 year because of their conduct or behavior. The trespass warning will be for that specific property that they're being trespassed, or that the behavior or conduct has occurred. And if the person violates that trespass warning within that year, they may be arrested. Second, and as we discussed during first reading, trespassing someone from public or city property may implicate someone's constitutional rights. So this ordinance is establishing an appeal procedure for that trespassed individual. The appeal will be to the city manager or his or her designee, and that is some language that's been added in between first and second reading. And a couple of important provisions that I would like to mention is that a document, if someone's trespassed, a document will be presented to that person that gives them those appeal rights, spells out what the appeal process is. During the pendency of a trespass warning, the city manager or his or her designee may authorize an individual who has received a trespass warning to enter the trespass property or premises to exercise their First Amendment rights if there's no reasonable alternative location to exercise those rights, or if they need to conduct necessary municipal business. And finally, if that person violates the trespass warning and is arrested during the pendency of an appeal, that appeal will be canceled because the entire matter will then be handled by the court process. And with that, I have just be here for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this? Seeing none, council members, are there questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Fernandez.
So I want to ask about the alternative location clause. So first, I just want to confirm, the only change that this particular article in front of us that we're approving or not approving is to add the appeal process to procedures that already exist in the city code, correct?
This is a new city code section. We don't really have anything that addresses trespass on city or public property.
But there's a state law.
There is, yes.
Okay, so this is basically for us to put a process in place to give citizens an appeal process that we didn't already have the structure for.
That is correct.
Okay, so then my question has to do with the alternative location, and that is theoretically, as long as you're not being violent or potentially harming somebody or walking in the middle of the street, you your First Amendment rights allow you to express your opinion anywhere. So is that just because, is that phrasing just because somebody may have been, I don't want to say a danger, but whatever behavior had been deemed to be unallowed in that location, and so they were issued a trespass notice? Is it just because of that behavior that led to that notice that they couldn't then exercise their First Amendment right in that specific location, and they'd need to go to a different location? I just want to make sure we're not telling someone that they can't be in a particular place, and we don't have a good rationale to back it up.
I'd like to try and answer that probably with an example.
Okay.
Okay, for example, if for some reason here during a city council meeting, someone gets trespassed because of their behavior, but yet they have a constitutional right to address their elected officials. If there's no other way for them to be able to address the city council, the city manager or his or her designee could allow for them to come for that specific purpose, and it would be limited, and then they would have to leave again.
Okay, that answers my question, yes.
Okay.
Other questions, council members? If there are no other questions, I'll close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, creating Article 5 trespassing under Chapter 16 of the City of Temple Terrace Code of Ordinances, creating Section 16-101, trespass on public property, authorization to issue trespass warning, appeal process, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1579 on second public hearing and second reading, creating Article 5, trespassing under Chapter 16 of the Code of Ordinances.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion? Not. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you, Mr. Mueller. Next is the second public hearing and second reading of ordinance 1578 approving, approving a land development code amendment regarding the regulations of fences and walls. I'll open the public hearing, and our community development director, Greg Pauley, is here to explain. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm here tonight again with ordinance 1578, which is amending our land development code, specifically sections 1240 definitions, 12861 fences, walls, and hedges, and 12128 non-conforming fences and walls on residential properties. The first time you saw this was on January 7th during the first reading. At that time, the City Council did vote to approve first reading with 3 revisions. Those revisions are the removal of hedges from the scope of the regulation, specification on what type of beam is meant to be prohibited, and number 3 is consolidating the numerous authorities granted to the director to make exemptions. For revision 1, with regards to hedges, we recommend at this time all references to the hedges were removed from section 12861. We do recognize that there was a discussion and concern about cross visibility, and that is actually addressed. You may recall Mr. Baroni answered that question. That is addressed and regulated through 1210.55 through the use of visibility triangles. And here's a graphic just to show everyone what that might look like in a sample residential home. You can see here that the code calls for clear, unobstructed cross visibility between the heights of 3 and 6 feet through the application of 30-foot triangles upon the intersection of 2 roadways, 2 public right-of-ways, and a smaller 20-foot triangle whenever a private access way or driveway intersects with a public roadway. So the graphic to the left there shows you examples of those two different sized triangles and how they would be applied under the different scenarios. It's important to note that nothing we're doing here tonight amends that code. That's code 12-1055. That's not within the scope of tonight's amendment. On the revision 2, this you will recall had to do with the steel beams. As we dug into this deeper and we realized that due to the various profiles, sizes, applications, and gauges of steel beams that are readily available out there, we propose actually removing the prohibitive text, steel beams, from section 12861, subsection E6C. And complementary to that, just to ensure that we do have metal in all of the proper places, we do recommend adding the word metal to the approved materials for columns between fence sections. It was previously in those other areas, but it was not added to the section that allows for columns between sections of decorative fences. And with regards to revision 3, this is consolidating the numerous authorities granted to the director. Here we're proposing adding section G, entitled Administrative Approvals, to section 12861 and removing the various individual references throughout the text. Within that section, subsection G1 consolidates the approval authority of the director for materials and styles of fences, walls, decorative fences, and decorative walls. And also continuing in that same section, subsection G2 authorizes the director to decide which front yard determination option to apply whenever standard methods within the code yield conflicting results. The graphic on the top right there, the little drawing of the home, traditionally a home is addressed with the front yard and the front of the house facing the same direction that the driveway accesses from. This example shows you what a corner lot would look like if it had side access coming in from a different side. There are clauses within the code that allow for either the front yard to be the direction the front primary structure is facing, or where where the property is accessed from. So there are scenarios that this could be conflicting with each other. So what this does is it simply allows the director to look at this and make the determination that, in this case, the front yard is the direction the front of the house is facing. Next step on that is removing the director's approval discretion from 12861 with regards to subsection E5 regarding printing and art on fencing. That's, you may recall, that's the same section that talks about the finished side of the fence must face outward, and then anything that's printed on or painted on has to face inward. And that just takes the director's discretion out of that approval process. And in addition to what I've shared with you thus far, there were a couple of other changes to section 1240 under definitions. You may recall that the graphics that I showed last time had a couple of corrections realigning the front yard and the side yard. What this text does is it cleans up those definitions as we discussed them on January 7th for both the rear and side yard to correspond with what that graphic is now showing at the right. Additionally, we also had a bit of discussion regarding replacing text in the definition of a yard. The former text was "and other landscaping" to replacing it with "or other landscaping." So that change has also been made. And finally, within this section, updating all grammar, conjunctions, punctuation, formatting, and numbering to support the most recent proposed changes. And finally, with regards to section 861, we had a couple of very minor modifications here as well. We added the word fencing for clarity to section E4B which refers to fencing around vacant lots. The second sentence of that section now reads, decorative fencing is not required, but fencing must allow for unobstructed visibility. Previously, the word fencing shown with a double understrike there was not included. So we simply added that word in 2 places within that statement. And lastly, we added a subsection titled deviations under subsection H. That was an existing subsection. It simply was not properly subtitled or subsection titled. And then again, we updated all the grammar, conjunctions, punctuation, formatting, and numbering to support the most recent proposed changes. All of those details are included in the multicolor markups that's in the backup material. And with that, I would be, first of all, thank you for your time, and I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Pauly. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on this item? Seeing none, council members, are there questions? Questions. Vice Mayor.
2 things. Number 1, under revision 3, where there is, what will be the criteria? You said that the director will have the option of deciding which is really the front of the house or the front of the dwelling. What kind of criteria would you use, for example?
Those 2 options that I referenced are actually listed within the text. The first one is it reads to the effect of the direction the primary structure faces or will face once constructed. And then the second one is the access point, talking about which way the driveway or access point enters the property. Now, in that scenario I shared with you, that one was relatively easy to look at, but if you take that same model sample home and you tilt it at a slight angle and have it facing towards the corner as opposed to a definite north or south, that's where the conflict may occur, because it's not always clear. And we do actually, believe it or not, we have a couple of homes in our community that actually do, I'll use the word canted. They have been placed canted on the lot, and they face more towards the intersection as opposed to a definite main street or side street. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, we run the risk of that could possibly change with whoever's sitting at your desk, no? I mean, I'll use for example, I rarely go in at my front door. Now, I have both of them face the same direction, but I use my garage more than I use my front door. So if I had the side way, then, could it be one way for one house and another way for another house, or?
Well, keep in mind, we're talking about a determination of the front yard.
Understood.
Because once the front yard is determined, then everything else falls in to that.
Okay.
So we would look at those 2 that are provided, the direction it's facing or should face or will face once constructed, and then the direction it's accessed from. So that's 1 and 2 in that order.
Okay.
And if we do have that scenario, such as the canted property or any irregular shaped property, that has come up a couple of times where, most of us live on parcels that have a front, a back, and 2 sides. But some parcels are not, some parcels are shaped like a pie cut, some parcels are shaped more circular in nature. There's just some differences out there. And this simply allows us to look at our standard and apply the best application of our standard to a parcel that doesn't necessarily fit a cookie cutter design.
Okay, thank you, that answered my question. Now, the second question is a little bit different. Ed, are we allowed to bring up an issue that was in the first reading?
Well, we're going to have discussion when there's a motion made, so I don't know.
It's a question.
Okay.
I'm dealing with side yard fences, okay? Is there any way that we could touch on that and make sure that we're all on the same page as to what it's going to be? Particularly on a corner lot, I'm sorry. We're dealing with a corner lot. I noticed in one of the comments that there was a better drawing, if you will, of what they look like. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page as to what that's going to be. What's going to be allowable as opposed to what's allowable now.
Well, and I'm going to try to answer the question, but if not, we can maybe find an illustration that might answer it better. The definition of the corner yard is what governs that side yard fence on a corner lot.
Right.
And that does allow up to a 6-foot fence, I'm sorry, up to a 7-foot fence on that side, on that corner yard. That fence can be installed all the way up to, but not forward of the front build-to line. And that, again, that's in the definition. And then, of course, it can then,
How far out?
at the property line.
Okay.
There was a diagram in there
Yeah, I just wanna
that,
make
would
sure
it be
that-
helpful to bring that back up?
No, I was make sure we didn't change anything.
No, sir, we did not change anything. Sorry, I may not have made it clear. The diagram that was shown to you on the 7th that had the corrections on it were the actual corner yard, side yard, front yard, rear yard that we wanted to propose. However, they did not match the text definition. So all we've done here is update the text definition to match the diagram that we've already showed you.
All right, I'm cool. I'm comfortable with it. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember Fernandez.
So I know we discussed it, and so I just want to clarify our process. And I know the text is in here that it is the homeowner's responsibility to identify where any easements might be as they go through the permit process. So what I want to know is, in order to get that information, what do we, the city, require? What kind of documentary evidence or surveys, or what do we require from a homeowner that would then ensure that the city is getting the information it needs to issue the permit?
That's a great question. The application process does require the survey, and the only, now, I'm not saying this is the only time it's ever happened. I'm going to share with you a personal reference that I'm aware of. The only time that I know of is when a survey was turned in and it was missing the easement information. And that created a bit of an issue on the backside. But generally, when a homeowner has a survey done, it's going to have those easements on there, and it's going to show us everything we need to see in order to permit that fence. So that survey that is our relying document right there.
Okay, so then if somebody comes in, they're applying for a permit, and they have a survey that doesn't delineate any kind of easement, do we, as part of our process, then just ask them, it's your responsibility to tell us if there are any easements on your property, and here's what could happen if you don't? Do we ask that as part of the process?
Yes, that's a common intake question that comes in for when fence applications come in. And the reason we have to check on that is because if there is an easement involved, it actually is routed out of my department to another department for review. So to answer your question, yes, that is a common practice to cross-check that.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, council members? Okay. Oh, I do have one. The changes to the steel beam thing, the removal of that. Does the ordinance in other places still prohibit the use of field fence, like metal farming stakes for posts, and field fence and chicken wire and barbed wire and?
Yes, sir. What the definition section does, if I may read one little excerpt here that I have in my notes. With regards to the steel beams and removing that prohibitive text, yes, we're taking it out of section 12861, but under section 1240, which is the section that identifies all of the definitions and the acceptable styles and materials, we believe, at least I believe, and I've discussed this with staff, we believe that there is sufficient regulation within that portion of our code that if we did have to regulate something that would be a non-standard fence installation, that our definition would allow us to do that.
Okay, so we're not going to run the risk of seeing agricultural type field fencing?
No, sir, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
No, because remember, there are those other we didn't talk about them tonight because they weren't changed or modified, but those other styles and materials are already in there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if there are no other questions, I will close the public hearing and ask the clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, amending the Temple Terrace Code of Development, the Land Development Code, as amended by amending sections 12-40, definitions, 12-861, fences, walls, and hedges, and 12-128, nonconforming fences and walls on residential property, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for correction of typographical errors, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion?
Move to approve ordinance 1578, approving a land development code amendment regarding the regulation of fences and walls upon second public hearing and second reading of ordinance.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion?
I just have one comment.
Vice Mayor?
There's an awful lot in here, and the one nice thing about it is if we got a problem and something bubbles up in the future, we can always go fix it. So that's, but there's a lot of work. It was a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That is appreciated. Thank you.
Greatly
Okay.
improved.
Yes.
Councilmember Kravitz?
I was just saying, it's greatly improved over the first reading. Thank you very much for all the effort you put into it.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
And I'm just throwing it out there. I've seen in the last week probably 5 or 6 people do like-for-like fence replacements around the area without a permit. It seems to be the way people do it. No one wants to go that direction other than me, I'm assuming.
Well, we're discussion on the motion is what we're open for right now, but if you want to bring that up under new business, that's coming up really quick.
Well.
Okay. Discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays. The ordinance is adopted on second reading. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miranda, for Sanaya, for all your work. I know you, you got a bit of a reprieve tonight, but I know you've got a lot of work in this, so thank you.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Okay, any carryover council business from previous meetings or previous issues? I do have one thing for your consideration. I'd like to propose to council that we address this flag issue by forming an ad hoc committee under the liaison of Councilmember Kravitz to engage citizens or conduct town hall meetings or whatever he deems appropriate and bring some recommendations back to this council for our approval.
What does that relate to?
The flag.
Oh, yeah.
You need that in
Do you need a motion?
I would.
Okay. I make motion that we create an ad hoc committee to address the Temple Terrace 100-year anniversary flag to be liaised by Eric Kravitz, council member Eric Kravitz.
I'm going to second that for discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion and a second. I'm
Okay.
gonna, well, you got the second. Who got the
No, he said
second?
the second.
You got the second. Seconded by Councilmember Chambers, clerk. Okay, discussion. You
Yeah.
called it.
Yes. So the makeup of the committee and the ad hoc committee, who's going to work on that?
Councilmember Kravitz.
Don't you
How do
need
we
more than one
appoint
person to have a committee?
What's that?
Don't you need more than one person to have a committee?
Well, you can form a committee. You can,
So what I'm saying, the number of citizens and staff and which staff and all that, well, which staff's
Well,
going
we're-
to come from the city?
well, we can do however the council wants to address it. Basically, I would recommend that we give this assignment to Councilmember Kravitz, and he can liaison with members of the community as he seems fit. Staff would support him by making public buildings available if he wants to have community meetings with people to get input or communicate with the arts community or really however, because we've got, if we want to do a flag, which is again, I don't know if we still want to do a flag or we just want to give up on it, that's fine too. But if we want to do a flag, and if we want this flag by May 3rd, we don't really have time
You're right.
to spell out, we're gonna have 5 members, we're gonna have people apply, we're gonna.
Yes,
But
correct.
it would be May 3rd before we'd ever get the first meeting off the ground. And so, I think Councilmember Kravitz seems to have a lot of has a lot of energy on this issue, and so you can go and liaison with whoever, Mr. Fetterman and those in the arts community or you can do another contest if, whatever. But, I don't know how else we're gonna move forward here, because we've already used our staff, and there's obviously there's a lot of people have a lot of angst over the result of that, so we can't go back to the staff and have them do the same thing. They've already given us their product.
I get it.
Yes.
I have, your motion called for a centennial flag. I don't think, we already have a.
The city flag.
No, she said centennial.
So I would amend it to be city.
Okay, that.
Okay.
Okay.
I didn't catch that. Thank you.
Yeah, that didn't. I'm just afraid, and I understand the timing issue, and I understand how we're trying to get everything done, but this could become like herding cats, and I don't know, who you're going to get involved with it, what rules are they going to have to follow, and I think it becomes something that my opinion, would be quite unmanageable with this, it's already the beginning of February.
We're just talking about a
No,
flag
I know,
design. It's
I know,
not, we're not,
My thought is, I think we put out the request, the call to the public to send in your flag designs and, possibly interact with Councilmember Kravitz through the process. And then they come in front of us in a public setting and show us all of the different choices, and maybe council narrows it down to 3 flags or something, and then we have a community vote. I mean, we can't even find the first flag for the city, so it can be changed, I'm sure.
If you're going to put together a committee, there should be some guidance as to who is on the committee, rather than selecting one council member to make a committee.
okay, forget the committee then.
Okay.
I just think we need to let Councilmember Kravitz run with this and bring back some designs for us to consider. We already used up our staff for this. We didn't get anything back that was acceptable, and they tried to make this into something that was acceptable. They brought it to council. We put it out to the public, which is why we didn't adopt it when they brought it to us. We didn't adopt it that night. We put it out to the public. And now we're being accused of all kinds of underhanded, sly, corrupt activity it's a flag. It's a flag, right? There's no ill intent here. There's no devil in the details. There's nobody trying to scam the citizenry by coming up with a rogue flag. It's a flag. We don't even need a flag. I almost regret bringing the whole idea up, because I think I was the one that brought it up. I should have left it alone. But if we want a flag, we need to get somebody who's empowered by the council to go engage the public and come up with this.
I think the issue that a lot of people had was not so much that we put the design out, it's more that nobody came to a public forum with choice 1, 2, and 3, where people could look at it and say, I like all of them, I like none of them.
Okay, well, we can
That's
do
all.
that.
I think that's really where it is.
And we can do that. So,
I'd be happy to do it, but can I pose a question to a member of the audience here?
I suppose.
Fred, you complained. You gonna help me with this?
Sure.
Okay. So, all right.
Okay, so
So I sh-
would you restate the motion? Let's just eliminate the whole committee thing.
Yes.
Let's just task Councilmember Kravitz with working with the community and bringing back some concepts for us.
The goal would, from my perspective, to be, do you want between 3 and 5 designs? Is that sort of where we're at? Or how many would you
Sure.
like?
I mean, that's what I would see.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, so I make a motion that we.
You gotta withdraw your motion.
Sorry, I withdraw my previous motion.
I withdraw my second.
Okay, and now I move that we appoint Councilmember Kravitz the lead point on the Temple Terrace, the City of Temple Terrace flag design And that's it.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion of the motion?
I have a question of
Yes.
staff.
Of
Back to the May 3rd deadline, to the marketing staff over there, if you know somebody, how long would it take to make a flag once a design is approved? So giving them some backstory to when we have to have this design approved by. Because we've had flags made, but they were the centennial flags.
May I?
Yeah.
Yes, Council, I'm sorry.
I don't know if we have an answer for that tonight. We're happy to look into this
Well, you
tomorrow.
need- I'm just saying, if we want it by May 3rd, the committee needs to
Not
know
committee.
when, the what?
The not
The not committee needs to know,
Well, I think Councilmember Kravitz knows the
Yeah.
goal, the deadline,
Yeah,
and
as
I
long
mean,
as-
if he
yeah.
can move with that speed, if not, he'll tell us,
Okay.
you know, it's not.
Give me a date, I'll have it printed and ready.
I don't have a date. I'm just
No, I'm
trying
just
to help get a
Well,
date.
remember, it's gotta be approved first.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll
no,
have the
good.
designs
I
anyway.
had my question.
Okay.
Further discussion of the motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No nays? Good luck.
Thanks for the work.
Other carryover council business. Okay, new business and board reports. Councilmember Chambers.
Yeah, I want to address the ordinance sign that was brought up about the Riverfront Preserve and we were referenced an ordinance, but we don't have an ordinance, or is there an ordinance?
About
City
not.
manager?
There's, if I remember correctly, there's a state law that we've cited in the past on the signage, and I've spoken with Ms. Rennie several times about this issue, and it's been very cordial conversations. We have signage in the preserve already that talks to this same statute. What Ms. Rennie is seeking is an additional sign at the front of the preserve. And staff's looked at this, and we feel there's quite a bit of signage already out there indicating a lot of this. So we have not accommodated that request. If you would like us to, that is, let us know. We can get a sign made if that's what you'd like us to do, and we'll put it out in the front.
I just brought it up because it was brought to us, so.
I have a question for, I don't really know.
You can't have too many. I was just gonna say, it would be nice to have another sign that would solve that issue, but also you can have too many signs. So I'm not opposed to having you guys do one more sign and putting it there, but that's just me, and I have to have the support of the group. Do I think it'll change somebody? I'm sorry. Do I think it'll change somebody? I really don't think so, but.
Councilmember Fernandez?
I guess my question too are, one, is there a way maybe to reorganize the signage that is there in order to make it maybe more visible or more encompassing of what needs to be said versus a lot of signage all over?
We can look at that. This is an issue that the original request came in months ago, so I don't have it top of mind right now as to exactly how all the signage looks out there. We can look at that if you'd like. Just to pick up what Councilmember Chambers stated, I have to say I echo that as a professional, that I think if people are out, people who drive to this preserve, that's in fact what's happening, and they're dumping pets, having a sign out there will make no difference to these people. They know what they're doing is illegal. That's why they're doing it in that fashion. So, however, I understand if we can take a look. Mr. Langfield's nodding his head too, so we'll look at the total signage just to see if there's a more effective way, I guess, of communicating that. I think if there's a substantial cost issue, we'll let you know what that might be. If it's something that we can handle administratively, if the council is okay with this concept, we'll look to make that change.
Okay. And then my second question is, it does seem like there is an increase in people abandoning pets at this location than there were in past years. Is there anything, any kind of animal rescue organization or something that maybe would want to volunteer on an ongoing basis? I mean, I know Miss Rennie, she walks in the park and she sees this, it's not her mission. I don't know, I mean, it's city property, but would it be possible that maybe there's a partnership with a local animal rescue organization or something that makes it easier. Because I agree. I mean, these people, I mean, anybody who can abandon their pet and actually have the pet chasing the car is probably not going to respond to a sign, but I don't know if there's something that a local rescue organization that the city wouldn't mind having as a partner in this process.
We'll look at that. I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are organizations. I know Ms. Rennie's mentioned when she's involved with it, it seems like there's some sort of, at least an informal organization that she's affiliated with. We can look at that if there's literature that these organizations have precisely for this matter. Maybe there's something we can incorporate into even to our social media, our website. Yeah, we can do that.
So that was it.
New business. I lost my train of thought. Vice Mayor.
Yeah. To your point, Councilmember Fernandez, they may not have signage, but they may have alternate ways that we can help to reduce the number of people do it. Maybe there's programs that have been tried somewhere else that we can do. But, 6 dogs and five dogs in 6 weeks, that's a lot.
Yes.
But I have two quick questions. One regarding the drone issue. I don't expect anybody to answer that tonight, but can we find out? I don't remember what our drone policy is at this point. The drone ordinances are, but if we could maybe a 30-second synopsis of where we are, so that if there's something that we should do or need to do or can do, we can take care of that in the future. And then the other was just a question. I noticed yesterday coming into the city, the community signage. We showed all the groups in Temple Terrace as you cross the 56th Street Bridge is being redone. I haven't heard anything about that. Are we doing that, or is that being done by the community, or what?
So, actually, that is a community initiative involving also an Eagle Scout as their Eagle Scout project. They were redoing some of that signage. They've been working with the, I'm not sure which particular club, if it's the women's club or other clubs, there's affiliation. This is part of this whole centennial, as well as obviously helping the young man earn his Eagle Scout badge. So the sign was, the signs were redone by the Scout. They weren't exactly in the type of quality we would have preferred, I guess we typically are used to. So we're looking at that right now to go in and kind of clean that up a bit to make sure that they reflect what we expect from the community signage.
Well, I noticed it because there was a city truck sitting there working on it.
That's probably us cleaning that part
I
up,
forgot to ask you about it yesterday when I was talking to you. So anyway, okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Councilmember Kravitz.
Just a short thing. I reached out to about 120 people who were interested in parks and urban beautification on Monday. This was with about 24 hours notice, and I got 8 inputs just about the Riverside Park. I thought I'd share those. 7 people expressed a concern about cleanliness, 3 about bathrooms, 1 about the trees, 1 about the park equipment, and 1 about the neglect of other parks. So just to sort of provide a little bit of citizen feedback on Riverside Park and what some people are thinking about it.
That's what I have a question about Riverside Park. So I didn't know, I was thinking I would bring it up to the city manager under city manager business, but.
Okay, you want to wait then? Yeah. Okay, other new business or board reports? I was going to ask about the drone thing also. I could have swore, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought drones were preempted from local restrictions, but then the gentleman who spoke talked about a pending ordinance in Orlando, so maybe I'm mistaken. Yes.
Well, the FAA controls a lot of the drone.
Yeah.
And there is a provision that to fly over school property, you have to have permission from the school. That's in the FAA rules.
Yeah.
I don't know about nearby, so they can.
Yeah, so we'll find out then.
We'll find out.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is the tomorrow after the Future Career Academy. This was all pulled together this morning, the final schedule, so I didn't bring it up before today. Visit Tampa Bay will be coming out to Temple Terrace. I'll be meeting with them right after the event at Lewis and giving them about an hour and a half tour of the city. This is phase 2 of a destination study that they began last year. Phase 1 last year highlighted some of the opportunities that they thought for destination enhancement. There was some analysis of conference hotel space versus proximity to the convention center, entertainment venues, those kinds of things. During the presentation last year, it was a very good presentation, very well done by their consultant, but I commented that I didn't feel that, at least in my opinion, I didn't think they directed enough light on this northeast section of the county. The stadium, the Fowler Avenue corridor, Thenonasassa, Temple Terrace, there's a lot going on here, and there's a lot of nature-related activities near here too, with Lettuce Lake, and there's a lot of hiking, and there's bike trails on Morris Bridge, and et cetera, et cetera. And so this phase 2 this year is with another consultant that I don't even know where they're from. They're coming from somewhere, but they're here to do phase 2, and they're going to shine that light on the northeast corridor. And so they're coming here. They're going to USF. I've talked to them. I don't know if they're going to visit Mosey, but I've let them know about the new IMAX Dome resurrection that's coming. And so they'll be touring tomorrow here. I plan to take them to the rec center and around the golf course community and take them downtown and talk to them about, you know, what we're doing in our CRA and so forth. So just so you know what's going on. And that's all I have. Out of the new business, board reports. Okay, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In the backup this evening, we have the quarterly reports on the priorities, the goals. Happy to answer any questions you may have of that. Seeing or hearing none, second, I'd like to, the council directed us maybe the last meeting or a couple meetings ago to bring back mock-ups of the proposed murals that the Centennial Committee was looking to install. So we have those for you this evening, if I could ask staff to print. So this is what's proposed for the north side of City Hall, west of the, east of the stairwell. If we can go to the next one. This is at the Family Rec Center, right at the entrance to the Family Rec Center. This is Lightfoot. And this is on the north side of City Hall, on the west side of the stairwell. This is at Fire Station 1.
The gazebo's on fire again.
And I believe that's it. Yeah, those are the proposed murals. We have, thanks to the great work of the committee and the Leisure Services Department, we've actually gotten agreements now from the artists. We're ready to pull the trigger on those agreements and have them start work on this, assuming the council was okay with the images provided to you this evening. If you feel otherwise, let us know and we will put those things on pause.
Council, you want to see them again? Or
I've got a quick question on the first. Could you go back to the first one? Yeah, is that an actual, what's that from? Anybody know? And that, was it
I think they just made it up, I think.
okay.
Because I don't think that's the original version.
No,
There's
it is
another
not.
No,
we-
it's a
there's been different
variation of something somewhere.
version. Is it?
Okay, all right, I'm just curious.
The postage stamp thing.
Okay, so let's take them one at a time, since this is important. It's going to be on our buildings for a while. Everybody good with this?
Yes.
I like it. You're going to be, everybody's okay with this one? Okay, you want to take a look at the next one then? The bats, that one changed too. And that is, according to, Carl, correct me if I'm wrong, that as you're walking into the entry doors of the rec center, this is to your left, where the racquetball or pickleball, whatever it is, right?
And if you don't mind,
Yes.
and the small wings on the right, that's over the sidewalk so people can walk up and stand in front of that and have their picture made like they have bat wings on.
Oh, I was about to ask.
Yep.
What's it
Everybody
called?
like this
Selfie spot.
You good with this one?
Yes.
Okay, how about the next one? That's pretty cool.
I like that.
Okay,
So- In this empty box?
That's says there now, like, OMRK, Lightfoot and the
That's
address.
fine, yeah.
But this one's being done, the artist is going to do the outline, and members of the public are gonna, in those 2 or 3 days' time, do the painting.
Like paint by number.
Yes, yes. And that's online right now, the registration to sign up for that event.
You should do that. Why don't you take over?
No.
Everybody good with this?
Yes.
I picked the colors.
Oh, God, no.
There's no telling what them.
Okay, and how about the next one? That's on this wall out here.
I like that.
I do too. Very colorful.
Yep, it looks very.
We're gonna paint Corey on the wall there too? Good. Everybody's good with this then?
Yes.
Very good. I like them. They look great.
Still fire station.
Oh, there's a fire station. The gazebo's on fire.
Yes.
Yes.
Carl's saying no.
Is the gazebo on fire? Is that?
I don't think so.
And should the gazebo be behind the firefighter so he's protecting it?
I don't know. Chief, you like that one? Your building,
It's your building.
Yeah, so can I speak?
please.
Okay.
I don't
Here we
know if I
go.
do or not. I got this, I think it was late Monday or early today. I came in the office and my computer was not working all day. So I was able to get a loaner from IT. They moved my hard drive over and I looked at it briefly today. I have not had a chance to have my staff look at it. I'm not opposed to the look. I just haven't really had time. This is kind of the second time I've looked at it. So I don't dislike it.
I know what you're gonna say.
Me?
I think so. Go ahead.
I will be honest, this is the first time I've seen this particular mural, because as of a few hours ago, it was a different mural on this wall. This is not what I anticipated seeing for this particular building, so I would, if you would kindly give us a little bit of time with this one, maybe, to just make sure everybody's on board internally, if that's okay with the
I think that's
council.
a good idea, because we don't want to approve something that the staff's not really on board with yet, I think. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yes.
We hold back on this one?
I'm totally agree.
Okay.
Can I make one comment?
Thank you, Chief. Yes, please.
Also, Chief, do you have any thoughts on the uniform that the firefighter is wearing? Do you think that should it be a more accurate reflection of the Temple Terrace Fire Department uniform, or do you have an opinion on that?
You know, we had talked about maybe having Temple Terrace on the back of the bunker gear. I'm not, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, obviously, if it's on our station, the thought is it's reflecting our firefighters. But that's something we've talked about in the past, and we'll probably discuss it tomorrow as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I know the committee talked about that, and I think their intent was to have Temple Terrace Fire Department on the back of the bunker gear. So I don't know what's happened there. I don't know what
Okay, well,
changed.
yeah, we got plenty to work on, and then we'll just revisit this one. And you guys get it where you want it.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Carlos.
All righty. Where are we? We're on the city manager's report. Yes.
Thank you again. As the council, I believe, is aware, we are, when we went through Hurricane Milton, that experience was very educational for us. We learned a lot in terms of needs that were identified throughout the storm and post-storm. And in talking with our government affairs representative, he suggested that we may look at creating some sort of basically an omnibus request to the state legislature to provide funding for certain key items that we identified. So I've got the list, and I'll actually hand this out to everyone here. So what's going around is a list of about 7 or 8 items that we feel would be warranted. In talking with the government affairs consultant, he suggested, making sure this is a reasonable request. If you make the request too large, they tend to throw it out. And so he felt pretty good about what the ask would be here. So just for you and the public's edification, I'm just going to go through it. So we are proposing to request a sandbag machine. As council knows, today everything is manual when we do sandbags. It is a lot of labor. Sandbag machine at $56,500. Tents and pavilion coverings for the sandbag operations, 4 tents at $350 apiece, as estimated. A fuel bobtail, which is basically a fuel trailer. One of the biggest challenges we had that throughout the hurricane was making sure that all our generators were fueled up. So this would give us that flexibility to get out there and get the fuel to the places where it needs to go. Also propose a rubber tire loader. As you can recall, we had a lot of tree debris and other debris in the roadways, and having this piece of equipment would allow us to push that debris out of the way. Sorry, let me go back to the fuel bobtail. I forgot to quote the price, $32,325 for each, and then we're requesting 2 trailers of those fuel trailers. Going back to the rubber tire loader now, that's one request for $350,000. We're also seeking a trailer-mounted generator. Again, this is an ability to go and address where we don't have the power sources, like backup generators in places, or if there's a generator issue, we have just basically a rolling reserve. That's $136,370. Also looking at a stationary generator for well number 11. That's $66,311. And then finally, radios, acquiring about 20 radios to provide communication for all the folks, the civilian employees, so everybody's on the same frequency. They're out in the community, so if cell phones are down, things like that, we are spotty cell service. That would be accommodated through this request so that would be $46,256. And if you flip over to the back, we have the 2 remaining items, which is a Starlink, which is a communications hub, a self-contained rapid field deployment communications hub. What this is, it allows us to provide cell service. If the towers were to be impacted and go down, again, this is a means of keeping communication up for our buildings. That would be, we'd look to do 5 of these. They're on trailers. They deploy as needed. Total cost would be about $50,591.60. And then we'd also look for a compact, rapid deployable FirstNet cellular internet connectivity to really, in essence, provide a network. The other thing provides a satellite. This provides a network for the Wi-Fi and things like that, and that would be one at $112,000. So the total city request to the legislature would be $884,079. If you are comfortable with this request, we will notify our government affairs representative probably tomorrow. Staff's already got the drafts of the applications ready to go, but pending your approval this evening.
Council members, discussion.
I'm certainly in favor of requesting the items and see what the legislature says.
Same. I think it's very important. I just have one question to the city manager. Forgive my ignorance. Is $2,300 per radio? Is that a typical price for that radio? I'm assuming it's a special radio of some kind, right?
Right. So I had the same reaction to the radio price. So yes, these are equivalent to the radios that the police force uses, for example. So they're not your typical walkie-talkie. I mean, they have a lot of capabilities. They have the battery life on these things is much longer than it used to be. So I imagine that's why the price for these units is what it is.
My only comment, I can see us using many of these things repeatedly through over the next few years, except for the rubber tire loader. It's a big number, and it's something that, could just, it may never get used again. In particular, again, it's just spending, I don't like spending money that we don't need to spend, but again, if you don't request it, you're never going to get it. You get cut out. But things like the fuel bobtail, yeah, that's absolutely critical. We use it for other stuff. We will get activity with it. But having said that, I think we need to do it.
I got a feeling if you gave our public works people a rubber tire loader that they would be using it all the time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, I'm sure it's not going to sit there.
Okay.
And truthfully, at this legislative session that's coming up, the regular session, after the last 2 weeks in Tallahassee, it's anybody's guess how the regular session is gonna go. It's almost impossible to figure out who's gonna line up where and where the priorities are gonna be. There is money in the governor's proposed reduced budget, there's still money in there for local governments, but it's labeled like emergency infrastructure, so I don't know what, I'm not sure. So we'll see. But this session is gonna be a little unpredictable, yeah.
Do we need a motion for this?
I would think we do, because I'm also asking for the council's blessing for us to, filling out the forms and turning it in is one thing, but now that's where the work begins, is to, to get with our government affairs contractor, and then, as you know, I do a lot of this. But I don't advocate for positions on behalf of the city without the city council's approval. I don't freelance, so, yes, I would prefer a motion to.
Move to approve the mayor acting on behalf of the city or with the city manager to petition the Florida legislature for fiscal year 2026, the local funding initiative request as delineated.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No nays. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council again. And the final thing I have this evening is we have a new marketing communications officer. I would like to introduce her, bring her up to the podium if you'll allow me. So Ms. Maria Rodriguez is worked for the city of Lafayette, Colorado at her last day. And there did marketing and communications for their Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department there. Moved here recently back to the Tampa area. Was exceptional in the interview process, has degrees, both bachelor's and master's degrees from Florida International University, and we're looking very much forward to the work that she'll be doing here for the city.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Yes, my goal is to elevate all the marketing and communications efforts in the city and to engage and inform all the residents. And like Carlos said, I have 13 years of experience in marketing and communications. I'm fully bilingual, and I'm just super excited about this opportunity. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Well, welcome aboard. We're very happy to have you, and you're joining a small but mighty team, as I'm sure you've seen that already. So
yes,
terrific team. So
it's a wonderful team. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fernandez.
Yes. My first, I just want to confirm with you, because it is in our packet, but I just want to confirm that the reports that you mentioned, the council goals, the budget goals, the ARPA projects update, that is also in the packet for the public to access.
It should be, yes.
Okay. So anybody who accesses the agenda packet will have that information.
Yes, that's my understanding when the staff puts these reports that they're made externally facing. If that's not the case, if anyone has issues or concerns with that, if they can't access them, please let me know. We'll make sure that that's correct.
So then I want to ask about Riverside Park. And we've had some feedback about the park. What is the process? What do we need to do to address some of the concerns that people have, as well as make sure that whatever investment we're putting into the open space is what it's of a nature that people want?
Okay. So the Riverside Park concept, my recollection is we started talking about this probably a year and a half or so ago. And there was different concepts that have been discussed. I think we had some commonality which was make better use of the river. The boardwalk, I think, has been something that's been in sort of all the different iterations that have gone on in terms of conceptually for this project. So that the observation tower is also something that was mentioned early on. I recall that we met with residents in that park months ago, and we talked about that as well. The park was also meant to be a critical component to the pedestrian master plan and tie into all that, so that we allow people to basically have that link from the downtown area through Springdale Pond to where we are. So what we did as a city, as an organization, is we put money in the budget last year for design of this park. The firm that was selected interviewed very competitively. There was a panel of folks on the interview panel. The firm interviewed very well and was, as far as I could tell from what staff told me, was head and shoulders above the other firms that were in the running at the time. That was based on a request for qualifications. That then in this year's budget, we put $3.4 million in the budget. That was done transparently, so I would just make sure it was clear. So during the budget workshops, we talked very clearly about this, that it was $3 million, if memory serves, and Mr. Ingram, correct me if I'm wrong, $3 million from unassigned fund balance and $400,000 from the TIF that we put in. Is that correct? That's correct. So we feel adequate funds in there to support this. The references to state grants and other funding sources, that is a charge that, yes, the consultant's looking at that. If they can find other things to defray the city's cost, that would be great. However, we feel pretty confident that we have dollars in the budget today that we could build a park that we contemplate building, potentially. So that part of it. So to speak to the next steps, I think what Mrs. Kravitz mentioned in her testimony this evening, when she talked about the performance of the consultant, that's accurate. The consultant was disappointing. And we have had very candid and heartfelt conversations with this consultant in the last week or so. We actually met in person here at City Hall with their vice president, two of their vice presidents, and the project manager, Mr. Langfeld and I, and we communicated. The first thing we said is, this is not the standard we expect. In fact, it's not the standard I've ever experienced in 25 years of doing this. What the commitment that we secured from them is that they heard us loud and clear. They are going to, the vice presidents themselves are going to be the ones making the next presentation. So right now in their contract, they're coming to the city council at the next step to make a presentation to the council. And they will be doing that themselves. They've committed to being much more communicative with Mr. Langfeld throughout this process. They did take a lot of information from the community that evening that was there. They also had, as was mentioned here, the QR codes and the surveys. Mm-hmm. And they actually mentioned that they were taking additional information, and so they were compiling that. And that was, the purpose of that meeting was to be what they, again, explained, a listening session. It doesn't mean that there weren't ideas and concepts that were already, there that people could react to. There was some of that, obviously. They talked about the boardwalk, the observation tower, et cetera. So that process, they're taking that information. They took what they heard. They're still going to be talking to Mr. Langfeld and his team, and they're moving that forward, and they're going to come back to the council. That's the next step. At that point, the council can dictate what would you like to see differently. If you don't like what was presented based on the public input and everything so far, then that'll be a decision for this body to make.
That's what I wanted to ask.
I have a couple of comments about this, since as city manager alluded to, I was woefully disappointed in the presentation made by our consultant and the misperceptions that met a lot of our residents who were there and those who have now heard from them and gone on the old social media thing. So several things were just wrong that the consultant said, and other things were incomplete, other things were just lacking. And so it's no surprise that many people came away with the wrong idea, and they think they're against this, when in reality, if they knew what we had really done as a council, I don't think they'd be as against it as they think they are. And so this is a project that was phase 2 of the council's. We did a lot of work on this. Most of you were here for that, but phase 1 of this was, well, let me back up even before phase 1. The downtown redevelopment area, as you know, is 25 or more years into this, and we have a Starbucks and a bank. We have a fountain that worked for a minute or two, but We have all these other parcels that, you know, we've had good projects come, we've had bad projects come, but here we are 25 years into this. At least we're generating enough tax revenue to pay the debt service. But for all these years, we were paying crushing debt service with no tax income. The TIF clock is running. It's only good to 2035. We're not that far from being the end of the TIF. So we have paid a lot of money for this investment, and we don't have a whole lot. I mean, what we have is nice, but it's not there. We've missed 2 economic booms, like downtown Tampa's taken full advantage of this. Now, they had Vinnick dollars and other things. So the council says, you know, a couple things missing in this vision. One is the walkability of this. There's no pedestrian master plan to connect the northern end of this to the southern end of it, to go through, you know, there's no items of interest here. There's no path, or there's no splash park. There's no, think of Armature Works and Eulali's and that area down there behind that. So when you go down there, you don't just go to Armature Works. You go to Armature Works and then you go out and walk down the path a little bit, right? They called activating the area, right? They've activated the area. They brought people down there, and Eulali's Gonsmart was the first one that jumped in with that, and then the next thing you know, and now that area is like a whole new district that 10 years ago didn't even exist. So phase 1 was the development of a pedestrian master plan, which we did. When we approved that, we saw this and said, you know, we have this southern property down here along the river, and we have Springdale Park, which is a functioning retention pond, but it's nothing special to look at. It's just a retention pond. But it's right across the street from this park, from this property on the river, and right next door to an existing park. This area could be something other than what it is. It's been on the market for 25 years. The only thing that's been viable, the only realistic offers we've had are apartment complexes. Well, you know, in fact, we told community development 25 years, don't even bring us apartment complexes. We don't care, but we don't want them. We wanted retirement villas. The footprint is too small, right? The only way to make that economically feasible is to go vertical, which they don't want to do. I have personally brought probably 6 restaurateurs there trying to entice them to put a riverfront restaurant. The footprint's too small. They can't get enough tops to make that a viable option. The only thing left on the table is an apartment complex, and we don't want it. And the traffic concern is a valid concern, particularly if you're going multifamily, because with the school down the road there, in rush hour during school year, that road coming out onto 56th Street is at max capacity. Not all the time, but during peak hours. We know that already. People made reference, have you done a traffic study? No, but we know what the traffic volume is already. I mean, so we did have the idea then of, wait a minute, what if we built this signature park, this anchor park, to try to create things for people to do. So you come down there now, right? Even if we got a beautiful restaurant down there, we have some eating, but I mean, even if we got Gonsmart or somebody to come and build a destination restaurant, you're going to drive your car there, you're going to park, you're going to get out, you're going to go in and have dinner with your family, and then you're going to come out and get in your car and go home. There's nothing to do there. There's no items of interest. There's no, right? This is not Armature Works or Eulalie. There's nothing to do there. And even if we sell that parcel just south of Paragon, Fountain Shops, we put another shopping center there. We've just traded, at the end of the day, we traded an old strip center for some new ones. There's still nothing to do. The original vision that this community had, people say, oh, you know, we didn't consult the public. The public has had input on this for 30 years, right? This project has been going on longer than some people in the city have been alive, right? There have been town hall meetings and charrettes and all, and the vision changes a little bit, but it's always the same core thing. We want an active, vibrant downtown where there are things to do, right? Things to bring families down there, things for you to do with your kids, right? That's still what we're trying to do. And so we came up with the idea, well, how about we put at the southern terminus of this pedestrian master plan, we put a signature park, like the backside of Armature Works or Ulale's. We put items of interest down there. Originally, I wanted, stupid idea, but it was mine, I own it. I wanted a band shell so we could have like concerts down there and stuff. We could move some special events down there. Well, we went out and met with the residents. You were there. We did a posted public meeting, and we walked around with some of the residents that live close to there, and they told us, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, that's my bedroom right there, right? I mean, I don't want concerts down here and a band shell and all that. That's not, right? We realized that this is kind of close to them. So I withdraw my, you know, I thought that sounded like a great idea. They thought differently. Okay, that's what we do. We, you know, if I lived there, I probably wouldn't want that either. I remember at tour you were saying this needs to be a passive use, right? We can't, not a lot of amplified music. We don't need to bring 500 people down there, right? This has got to be passive kind of use. We've always talked about a canoe launch down there. We talked about the ability to rent a boat, so you don't even have to have one. You can have one. If you own a boat, you can take it down there, but you can also go, hey, let's, after dinner, it's a beautiful night, look at the river, it's gorgeous, let's put a credit card in here, drag a boat out and go kayaking for an hour, right? And put the boat back in, we're done, we go home. There's stuff down there to do. So the consultant the other day didn't talk about any of this. They talked about the park. They didn't talk much. Somebody asked a question and they barely answered it about, well, what about Springdale Pond across the street? And their answer was, well, we're going to build a sidewalk on the other side of the pond so you can walk around it. No, we're going to do a lot more than that. We're going to build a path around this whole pond. We're going to have a fitness stations around there for people that want to go down there. We're going to have a gazebo on the northwest corner. It's in the plans with a little courtyard. We plan to activate that area also and have this one park that's at the southern terminus of the pedestrian plan that connects to the downtown. They didn't talk about any of this. And we were very disappointed in this, but I think a lot of people came away from this with the wrong idea. And through no fault of their own, the consultant didn't paint the whole picture. And so I am still excited about this project. I think we have the money to pay for this, and people have said, oh, you're being deceptive because you're not telling us what the funding plan is. Well, we don't know exactly what the that's not how this works. So let's just say it costs $5 million. We got 3.4 set aside now. We have some more sitting in unassigned fund balance, which will be increased even more at the end of this fiscal year. So we can pay cash for this between the TIF, the CIT, unassigned fund balance, and the cash we have on hand. We don't plan to incur any debt for this or raise taxes to pay for this, right? And people say, well, it's a duplication of what we have at River Hills. Yeah, to some extent it is, because it's another riverfront park. But River Hills Park doesn't connect to our downtown, which is what we're trying to activate. And so I'm still passionate about this project. I'm sorry that it was very terribly explained to the public. But back to the funding thing. So we don't know exactly. You can't go and seek grant funding or appropriations from the legislature when you don't have the design yet. We're not there yet. We don't have anything to, I can't go and say, hey, give me $50,000 out of Swiftwood, you know, well, what are you going to build? Well, here's a sketch. I mean, you have to get to a certain point in design before you can go and seek this funding. We aren't there yet. So you can bet that when we get there, that we'll be chasing money. I mean, will we get it? I don't know, but there's DNR, there's EPC, there's SwiftMud, there's all kinds of people that are going to get sick of hearing from me asking for money for this. So I don't know what the funding package is going to look like yet, but you never do. And Tampa didn't know what Julian B. Lane was going to look like when they didn't know how they were going to pay for the Riverwalk. That took 4 mayor's administrations to get through to get the Riverwalk done. These things don't happen like that. You don't have everything, and it's okay that there's some dissension in the public and there's some skepticism, and after the presentation, I can understand it. But, guys, I just want to assure everybody in this community, we have worked really hard up here to deserve your, to earn your, that we're credible. And nobody up here is trying to feather their own nest. There's nobody trying to pull something over on anybody. It's okay to disagree and have dialogue, but you don't have to come here and say, oh, you're trying to hide something and, you know, you're not being transparent and the public has no opportunity for input. And all I can do is say, you're at a public meeting saying that the public doesn't have opportunity for input. Now maybe there should be more opportunity before we go to 60%. Fair enough. But to go to a public meeting and say there's no transparency, well, you're at a public meeting. So there is nobody's trying to hide anything here. So the consultant did a terrible job, but I think this is a good project. It's not design. I don't even remember. I guess I was so frustrated with some of the things going on that I missed the pavilion. I don't even remember the big pavilion that people are talking about. But it is supposed to be a passive park, and if I miss that and there's a big pavilion designed for concerts and stuff, then we don't need to do that. I thought there were restroom facilities going in. We need to talk probably more about that. I just think that people came away, and understandably so, because I think our consultant did a terrible job, but I think people are amped up over this, and if they really understood what we were trying to do, they would be excited, not burning us at the stake. So, okay, I'll shut up now. Yeah, Vice Mayor.
If I may echo some of your comments, this is almost reminiscent of the downtown redevelopment when it stalled. We had charrettes and we had town halls, and then it stalled because of the economy. We're not listening to it. You're not doing what we want to do. We did. There's certainly so much we can do with that, with the redevelopment, and this is kind of similar to that. Yes, the presentation was woeful, but I have total confidence in Leisure Services and Mr. Langfeld, working with them, telling them what we need. I'm hopeful that they got the message. I'm pretty sure that they did. And to your point, I'm totally passionate with the whole thing. I'm totally 100% behind the project. We have been as transparent as we possibly can be with it, given that we're only at a 30% stage. Well, the bathroom's going to go here. No, we don't know what they're going to do. But this is the opportunity to flesh out things that are missing, things that need to be done. They're not making a presentation as to what the blueprint looks like. And people have to remember, the goal is to bring this from Boy Scout Park all the way up to across the street from the library. That's a big endeavor.
Well, they also said that the police department hasn't even been engaged in that. Well, that's not, maybe they haven't talked to the police department, maybe that's what they meant, but police department's been involved in this since day one.
Well, comments are made down there, well, has a study been done? Well, I've asked 4 times whether the study's been done or not. It's part of the plan, it's part of the process. And, I mean, I was at the meeting also, and okay, well, maybe we don't have any additional bathrooms in this preliminary design. Okay, that's something that we need to work with. But this is a fluid process, and it's going to change a little bit. It'll be morphed by the time it's finished. We know that. It's just the way it does it. But to your point, yeah, we've worked really hard on this entire the concept and the project and staff. I have total confidence that Carl will beat up the grant process. They don't let grants go. If it's available, they'll pull it out of somewhere. So I'm still 100% behind the project, and I think that it's moving in the right direction. The engineering team has gotten the message, I hope, I'm sure, and if not, then they'll put it back in line. Just wanted to reiterate my support for the total project.
Have we beaten this to death, or is there?
Just one brief comment.
Councilmember Kravitz.
I'm also 100% behind it. I think it can be really great. When I hear people saying that they don't have a chance for input, and they're expressing specific concerns, for example, about cleanliness, about the issues in other parks that aren't being addressed that they perceive. I think we could do ourselves a service if we really address those issues head on. We say, here's how we're going to make sure that this park remains clean. Here's how we're going to make sure that the other parks are at a standard that you can accept. And I think if we could go that step, and that doesn't depend on the consultant, that would go a long way toward allaying a lot of these fears and concerns that are coming from the community.
Okay. City manager, you were done. Anything else for Mr. Bega? City attorney's report.
I have a few things. One, in our section 18-42 of our city code, it does address drones. And no person shall take off, launch, land, ascend, or descend any aircraft, glider, balloon, model airplane, drone, or parachute in or upon any department managed, and that's referring to leisure services, land without contractual authority or an approved facility rental application from the department. So this council did address drones in an ordinance. The second thing is, with regard to abandoning animals in Florida, it is a first-degree misdemeanor to abandon any animal in a public place without food, water, and protection. The penalty is up to 1 year in jail and a fine of up to $5,000 or both. So that should deter people if they are made aware of that. Lastly, I have a report on a couple of lien reductions. The first one, and these were handled by the Deputy City Attorney. The first one concerns 8602 Shirley Drive. This involved a failure to get a permit for a fence, and this apparently went on for some time. The lien rose to $6,050. This was settled for $1,000 plus the city's costs, which were $213.96. In the process of this, the manager of this property complied with our rental property ordinance and also paid the fee for the rental property registration. So we got a total of $1,413.96. The second one was 9901 Morris Glen Way. This particular violation concerned some rain gutters that were not clean. There was vegetation growing in them and other debris. This also went on for some time, and therefore the lien rose to $5,175. The city's costs were $213.96, and this was settled for $1,213.96. That's it.
Any questions for the city attorney? Vice Mayor.
Two questions. Number one, regarding lien reductions, I know at the beginning I was against the process of letting the attorney do it, but I think it's been handled very well, and very glad that you guys are doing it, and hope it continues forever and ever, because it makes life a lot easier on this side of the desk. The second comment is going back to the drones. I don't want to beat it to death, but doesn't address the school issue.
Yeah.
Can we still come back with what can we do? Can we do anything? It may be preempted by the state, but is there something we should do if you'll let us know?
We'll research that and we'll let you know.
That was my concern. Other than that, great, thank you.
I'd like to be able to follow up with that speaker tonight and tell him, okay, there's already stuff in place that, you know, or there's not, and maybe that's a gap, I don't know.
That's it.
Anything else for the city attorney? Any other business to come before the council? Anything else? I know nobody's going to raise their hand over here because your colleagues would kill you at this point, I know. So thank you again for all the work you do. Please pass that along to your staff. We sincerely appreciate it, and we don't take your work for granted. So thank you. We will be adjourned.